Fabrizio, editor-in-chief of Power Electronics News, and I am at PCIM in Nuremberg, and I have the pleasure to stay here with Peter Wawer, President Green Industrial Power, Vice President and CCO at Infineon Technologies. Hi Peter, how are you?
Hi Maurizio, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. I'm feeling great actually.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for your time. So we are at PCIM. How is it going? Tell me what's news from Infineon.
Yeah, I think it's going quite well. So really happy to be here again. So there's a tremendous amount of people showing interest for Infineon and Infineon products. And I think also we have some cool innovations which you can visit at our booth. The grand theme of things for Infineon is around about decarbonization and digitalization, right? And there you find a lot of good assets, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. Indeed, despite ongoing climate change, the use of fossil fuels remains one of the major sources of power generation that is taking place in several sectors globally in the worldwide. So the goal is to decrease CO2 emission. That means to move into renewable sources, so not fossil fuels sources. And in this case, this is can be seen like the next step to mitigate the impact of climate change. So what about your path toward decarbonization?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's a perfect fit for us. That's also the reason why power electronics semiconductor business is booming. If you look into the usage of semiconductors for the different ways how to generate energy, then the classical forms like fossil fuel-fired power plants hardly use any semiconductors. It's almost zero per megawatt or per gigawatt as you count. It's completely different if you think about now renewable energy, because the heart and the core of renewable energy generation, might it be for wind or might it be PV, are the inverters. And the inverters, to a large extent, consist of semiconductors, power semiconductors, and so the content of power semiconductors per megawatt energy generated is a couple of thousands of euros. And so that's a perfect fit for us because these energies are needed. These are the fast-growing applications where we benefit from and where we do our best to meet the demand, which continuously increase.
So the USA and Europe have set a global a goal to become global neutral by the next year, 2050, more or less. Maybe China a little bit later, but anyway, during that decade. But these long terms have also a drastic impact on carbon neutral. That means we need to increase the rate to move towards renewable energies. That means talking about efficiency improvements, using solar, wind, wide bandgap semiconductors, in this case gallium nitride and silicon carbide, but also the infrastructure should be smarter, maybe machine learning algorithms to have a smart grid, that means. So what are some promising technologies that you are seeing in supporting the transition to renewable energy, and what government policies and regulation could play in accelerating this transition?
Yeah, let me start with the example for PV generated energy for the solar inverter, because that's a very nice example where you see that the improvement of technology brings massively down cost and of course then investments needed to generate the electricity. If you look into an inverter system in the range of 100 kilowatt, such kind of a system would have had a weight of around a ton 15 years ago, and accordingly rather high cost. If you look into it from today's perspective, with the advancement first of latest generations of silicon technology, but now recently, of course, also advancements for silicon carbide, you see that such kind of a system now generates 350 kilowatt and has a weight of 100 kg. So if you compare it and do the ratio, it's a factor 30 improvement. 30 productivity, which does not translate directly into cost improvement, but roughly, right? So disproportionate decrease in cost for PV energy, generated energy. And that is what we need, of course. And the good thing that in this example, PV, and the same is true for wind, becomes now competitive without subsidies, without government subsidies, so no need to directly subsidize this energy generation, renewable energy generation anymore. But of course there are other areas for industries where support from the government stimulus is quite helpful. And I think that is also meanwhile being understood and also nicely supported by the European Commission, for example.
So each of us has to take the first step. I mean, each of us should have a green innovation. This is not only from company, but from each of us, I guess.
I
so,
agree.
At least in my opinion. So from my perspective, I decided to use a solar plant in my house just to move from no fossil to green energy. So, and this is important from also from the education, to educate all, from kids in particular. So what is your perspective? Also, what about suggestion for students, young professionals that should have resources, design resources available for just for this next step?
Yeah, I think it's, as you said, right, it's always important that you think about how can I role model? How can I be showing my kids, my family, what to do and what not to do? And these are the simple things, right? For example, instead of car, maybe if it's a combustion engine car, maybe take the bicycle or public transport to commute to work. One example. The PV power plant on the roof, another good example, which also, in my case, exists. Another thing that was coming by chance, I was already able a couple of years ago to change the heating system to geothermal. It's not available each and everywhere, but of course, if you're interested, if you have the capability, then you should go for. And these are only 3 examples, and I think a couple of more exist.
Thanks a lot for your time, Peter. Thanks a lot for this interview.
Maurizio, was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, and stay tuned to Power Electronic News with the latest articles. Thank you.